Hello, Discover here to explain our cash back match. Here's how it works. We give you cash back for using your Discover card on the things you were going to buy anyway. Then we match that cash back in your first year. And that's why we call it Cashback Match. Now to recap and say cashback one more time. We match all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year automatically. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
Unjoke your sleep at Mattress Firm's Cyber Week sale and wake up a better you. Shop in-store or online and save up to $500 when you get a king bed for the price of a queen or a queen for a twin. Plus, get a free adjustable base with qualifying Sealy purchase up to a $499 value. Or save up to $500 on Tempur-Pedic, the most highly recommended bed in America. And you can shop with confidence thanks to our low price guarantee. Unjunk your sleep, only at Mattress Firm. Offer valid with qualifying purchase. Restrictions apply. See details at mattressfirm.com.
Podcast consumers oftentimes have to search for the right podcast. And it takes forever. You can never really find a great one.
You know, not every podcast is awesome like The Hard Luck Show.
If you listen to mine, your search will continue. My name is Eric Zane. I host the Eric Zane Show podcast. I would like you to try it out and see for yourself how much it stinks. That's ERICZANE Show podcast. I got to warn you, my show is not safe for work. I swear like an idiot. It's not safe for anybody, really. I'm kind of a loud mouth, but you will not have a hard time figuring out what side of an issue or a stance I'm taking on whatever. It is a comedy podcast. I like to troll people and have a lot of fun. I describe it as news, nonsense, and my personal adventures. The Eric Zane Show podcast. Check it out wherever you download podcasts.
And now it's time for an actual good podcast. Another edition of The Hard Luck Show.
And begin.
I'm going to go get my coffee.
And we run a tight ship here.
Your product, basement hard luck. Basement hard luck. Card shots, thieves, murderers with hard luck. Pimps and card shots, thieves, murderers with hard luck. Your product, basement hard luck. Basement hard luck. Card shots, thieves, murderers with hard luck. Pimps and card shots, thieves, murderers with hard luck.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Hard Luck Show. I'm your certified, qualified West Side host, Steve Lucky Luciano. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you've tuned into the greatest show on earth, Hard Luck Show, coming at you from the Pico Youth Center in Santa Monica, California. Sitting next to me, my partner, my co-host,
Is Chumahan Bowen, American Indian, elegant barbarian, Southern California, here to bring you more discussions about the SHU once again.
Yes, indeed.
And, also, okay, we should say the audio samurai.
Our sound engineer.
Sean
The
Lewis.
old Mr. Blue Eyes himself.
Certified audio professional engineer for the Hard Luck Show.
Could be related to Frank Sinatra, but we can't
You never
say
know.
that. We can't say that.
Yeah, we can't actually
Also, we have the greatest showrunner on earth. It's Schwartz. How are you doing, Schwartz?
I'm doing fantastic this morning. Happy to be here.
This is great, Chumahan.
Right.
Getting to dig into this series on confinement, but you know we are doing a deep dive.
Right. So, grand producer Danny Murillo. This is another installment on his program working with California families to abolish solitary confinement, funded by Unlock the Box, and of course, the prestigious Hard Luck Show.
Yes,
he has set aside some excellent guests to speak on some topics, and today we're going to talk a little bit about solitary confinement and the impact on mental health. And with us right now, we have Mr. Steven Czifra, right? MSW?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Masters in Social Work.
Masters in Social Work. And with Steven is a surprise guest. We didn't know. You brought with you who?
My sister Joy.
Sister Joy. Look at that smile on Sister
Full of
Joy.
joy. She brought lots of joy in
Look at
this
that
place.
smile. Yeah, Sister Joy, do you want to say hello to Mr. and Mrs. Earbuds?
Yeah.
Hello.
Nah, what a nice voice. It is a pleasure to have you on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Really nice to have both of you here.
So, Steven, why don't we just start with the brass tacks? What is your experience with solitary confinement?
Okay, so like officially, I 8 years
Right.
solitary.
Excuse me. You spent 8 years in solitary confinement yourself.
Yeah,
Okay.
And in which institution?
in Corcoran, Pelican Bay.
Wow. All right. And so 8 years in solitary confinement, what was the first day like?
Well,
And can we get an accurate time window of what years this was in?
so 19. Let's see, I was 18 in 1990. I was born in 74. So when was 18? I don't do memories and timelines that good.
92.
92.
So 92. So 94 to 97
What were you charged with?
with battery.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then, but battery, so let's say
You mean
get-
to go to the SHU or to go to prison?
go to prison.
So originally it was a carjacking as a juvenile, and they sent me to YA. And then when I was in YA, I got a battery on a peace officer, shipped me over to prison. I was in solitary in YA. I was trying to get out of there. And so what happened was this cat was in YA. He caught a new beef, went to prison from YA, did his whole term, and then he finished his prison term, and they brought him back to YA from Pelican Bay.
What?
Yeah. And so this guy Chino, and so he told us all about prison, and like as soon as we all learned about prison, we all started doing roll calls. We all started breaking down, doing workouts, rolling up our mattresses, leaving the cops alone.
So hold on a second. So this guy goes into big boy prison, comes back, and instead of like a scared straight thing where you guys realize, oh, I don't want to go there, instead it was attractive to you guys.
Oh no, we lost it. We were all trying to get there.
Yeah.
Why? What makes it attractive to a young guy at that time?
Well, I had a 10-year sentence, so I wasn't going to get out until I was 25. And so because I wouldn't do the program, they're like, well, you're going to do all your time if you don't do the little drug program they had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I can't program for more than 3 or 4 days. I can't do a year program. That's just unreasonable, you know? So I knew I was going to, they told me like, you're never getting out of here till you're 25. You're never getting out of the hole.
What does that do mentally for a young man when he's already consigned himself like, look, I'm never getting out of this place? What kind of things emotionally and mentally occur for a young man?
Well, I liked it until the very end.
You did?
Yeah, I liked incarceration until I got to New Folsom. And New Folsom made a believer out of me. I was like, oh, this is a whole different, this isn't fun prison anymore.
Hold on.
Did you go up there when they were opening it?
No, when I got out of the SHU, they sent me to New Folsom to finish up my last 2 years.
All right, wait. Let's break this up real quick. Okay. So the first part, you loved it. What was it that you loved about the prison experience before New Folsom? What did you love about it?
Well, I mean, like when I got to juvenile hall, it was horrible. You know, it was like juvenile hall is solitary confinement. Like people don't understand. Like if there's a child somewhere locked up in California, they're probably in their little cell all the time by themselves, unless they're in a day room or something, some equally uncomfortable. But but mostly like if you have a cell, you're all by yourself all the time, kind of thing. So that was horrible. And so then when I got to YA, they're like, do you want to buy a radio? Do you want to buy some? You want to buy some candy and some chips and stuff? And I was like, oh, yeah, food, camaraderie, clean clothes, regiment, like caring adults who only like beat me and maced me. Like when I got out of line, they didn't do it like indiscriminately, Mm-hmm. So it was like this kind of like the father I never had kind of a thing,
Interesting.
Now looking back, that's how I kind of like, why would I like that?
All your needs were met?
Yeah, almost.
Which ones weren't met?
Unconditional positive regard, so I had to do a lot of performing to get the positive regard of the people around me, both the other wards and the YA is really weird because it's like you got the regs and you got the levas and the NACs and stuff, and so like once you get dropped, it's like there's a rap on you, bro. Like you're like a pariah.
Can you define that? Reg, NAC, and levas. What are those?
So like if you're somebody comes at you sideways and you don't really know how to handle yourself, then you're just, and these are children, by the way, and I'm talking about children,
right?
So like unless you, like I was out in the streets like since I was 9 years old, so like by the time I got to YA I was 14. Like I had already known like, oh yeah, like if somebody looks at you sideways, you just take flight, and
right.
That's all the communication that so a lot of people don't have that, like a lot of the kids that end up there, this depends on the jurisdiction they're in. So they might be in some rural community, break into a car or something. They don't have any resources or facilities to incarcerate these kids. So they'll just send them to YA, and they don't know anything about, they're not getting schooled, quote unquote schooled. So, so they're automatically just like socially awkward. Like, how do I behave around cholos and Crips? And,
it's kind of like old Blue Eyes. So let me ask you this. So a reg is a what?
Just like a stand-up guy. Somebody, somebody who's okay.
A regular is short for a regular.
I get it. A NAC is a what?
A dope, a lame, just somebody you can
lame.
Yeah.
Willie Lump, if you will.
Not even necessarily that. Just somebody that doesn't have all of the, the fundamentals of, carrying yourself and when you're incarcerated.
And then the leva is?
That's the Mexican version of that. That's the Mexican version of, you ain't no good.
All right. So I might be related to a couple of people that are NACs, I think. All right. So now.
Yeah, I think we all are.
So then at some point, how old were you when you first went into the SHU?
Almost like 20 years old, I think.
Okay. And describe the cell they gave you or they stuck you in.
Well, the Corcoran SHU is really weird because like you walk in to the cell and it's like there's this little hallway between the two bunks. It's really just concrete slabs,
right,
side by side, which is really an uncomfortable way to live with somebody. Like I had a cellmate for a long while,
right,
and so like you're like both like right here, and your bunks are like about, I'd say about 18 inches apart.
Right. So you both would be laying down on a slab of concrete 18 inches apart with another grown man stuck in a cell.
Yeah. Yeah. And because it's the SHU, like 98% of people in there don't have cellmates. So if somebody is allowed to have a cellmate, your ass is going to be living with them for the duration,
Wow.
Yeah. So like they could just be anybody.
And it's another grown man.
Yeah. Like my cellmate, one of them, he was doing interferon. He had really bad hepatitis, and he had like the worst internal, reaction to that.
I feel like you're leading up to that. He had bad gas.
Yeah, he had gas and a lot of vomiting and stuff. And then he wasn't even like pleasant to like talk to.
Right.
So it was just like this, I just tell people like, because like you might get married, you might have a, girlfriend or something, you get sick of them. I'm like,
that's nothing.
You don't know what you're talking about.
That's nothing. I could be married to a blind insurance agent and be happy because I was in Corcoran next to a guy with bad gas.
Mm-hmm.
So you went to you went to Corcoran SHU. How long of a SHU term were you given when you were handed over that?
2 years initially. But like I always go in, and then as soon as I get my little 1 or 2 year thing, then I just start making it worse as I go.
Big Lex, you were in the SHU Corcoran, right?
Yeah. And I had to finish out a SHU term at another facility, and when they finally endorsed me over, I went to Corcoran. I went through the SHU, and then they actually, before I went from the SHU, they did something weird. They brought me to ADSEG, and I went through ADSEG before I was released to a yard. They released me to I think it was C yard, which was like a level 3 yard, and I was there for about 8 hours, and they said my points were too high, and I ended up going over to B yard, which was like a SHU kick-out yard, because I've seen dudes from the SHU. But yeah, and that was in 95.
Okay, so Steve, were you in a similar type cell, at least for a minute,
Yes,
that Steve's the other Steve's talking about, which is, did you have a celly too on that cement slab?
At one point I did, and one point I didn't.
And did you prefer alone or with a celly?
I think let me just say that for the primary part of that SHU program, I was in a cell with a celly. I did it with a celly, Nethel from 18th Street. And we got along, and it was dope, but the chances of that happening are very slim to none.
Right.
Like Steven's saying, it's just so random. There's a better chance that you end up with a fucked up situation than you do. Lucky. And finally, when I got to AdSeg, they had me by myself for a few weeks. And I'd been in AdSeg before by myself for an extended amount of time. And I don't know. Maybe I don't like a celly, but I don't know. There was something about after the initial being alone by yourself for an amount of time.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. There was some. I actually liked doing the time alone by myself more than with somebody in the cell.
On this cement slab, because I've looked at photos, right? And I mean, it legit looks like it's just part of the wall. They just made a little block out of that. What did they give you to lay on? That's where you're supposed to sleep. What do they give you for your bedding materials?
Just your standard issue little, 2.5 inch, little roll up mat kind of a thing.
And is how do they climate control that place? Is it cold in there?
Corcoran, well, Corcoran is it's heaters and swamp coolers. So
yeah, not air conditioning.
Swamp
cooler.
Hey, so Mr. and Mrs. Earbuds, if you don't know what a swamp cooler is, right? This is a real.
They're all swamp coolers too. There is no air conditioning in CDC.
So swamp cooler,
except in the offices,
is like a giant fucking box when they got a fan and they drizzle down some water over like a sponge material, and they just send in this water that's kind of cooled by the air, but along with it goes a whole bunch of fucking humidity, right?
Yeah, if you're standing right in front of the little square, then you'll get the first part of the coolness, but that's it. By the time it circulates, gets around to you, when you're in it all day, it doesn't really. You're not like, oh, I'm uncomfortable.
Right, dude. People don't understand.
Well, what is? Explain that.
Well, for like at one point, I was in Ironwood, and it was between 115 and 130 degrees for like 4 months straight. Wow. And you just walk out. You're in a blast oven every time you leave the cell, and it's just like that's where you live. You just live in a blast oven. So.
And from a mental standpoint, what do you think happens to you? Like, there's the first part of when you go into the SHU, and then there's probably, I would think, just phases mentally in terms of emotion, thinking, whatever, that you go through as the time extends. Can you walk us through a little bit about what occurs to you first, and then how you go through these cycles, or what did you notice?
Well, yeah, when I first started being alone, so my first day in juvenile hall, I got in a fight like immediately, and they put me in the box at East Lake Juvenile Hall. And that was, it's like it's been painted so many times that there's like the vent it's just little teeny tiny little holes with like greasy dirt stuck in it, and like the window is like covered in mesh and then ivy, so like you're just in this little paint box. And so like that was like I was like, man, this is like a Karachi prison or like
Vietnam,
like that. Yeah, it was like real prison.
How long were you in that?
The first time was 3 days, and then like that became my little modus operandi, was just getting in a bunch of fist fights as many as I could, because I got a lot of, people like, oh, you're special because you're fucking unstable,
right?
Like you'll fight for anything,
right?
And so that was kind of my little shtick.
Hey man, if you spend 3 days in that box, how do you take a shit or piss?
No, they got a toilet.
They got a little toilet in there.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, like I think I had some kind of lactose intolerance.
Yeah.
Because one time I didn't know this, but like they gave me milk, and then I started farting a bunch,
Yeah.
And there's no air moving in and out, and like like the dude opened the door, man. It was just like I didn't know. It was like being in there all the time, and
Right, you're like a fish swimming in water. You don't know.
right.
The
Yeah.
guy opens the door and his eyes just started watering.
I started gagging and retching and shit, and I was just like, I was embarrassed, I started blushing and stuff, but yeah, I didn't mess with the milk after that. But yeah, that box was tangy, man. That was real prison. That was my first experience. So when I went into that original situation, I was a spirited, happy, unsupervised juvenile delinquent.
Right.
I was running the streets of Hollywood, just having a good time, and yeah, man, my mental health was great, at the time. Well, like, I don't really know, because like, you're not supposed to really experience domestic violence. You're not really supposed to experience like all that kind of stuff that's been going on in the background.
Yeah.
Were you in Preston?
No, I was in YTS and in Paso and SRCC.
The name
Norwalk.
Doug White sound familiar?
Doug White?
Doug White. No.
So, but going back to that box though, right? And talking about sort of, at first I was like a spirited, cut up, wild guy getting into some fucking around out in the streets, having a good time, right? Young person.
Yep.
Right? Kind of person you probably see in fucking The Warriors or some shit like that, right? Just fucking kicking ass, whatever, right? Fucking A. Maybe a little rough around the edges.
Warriors? Okay.
All right. Well, I don't know. I'm just fucking throwing shit out there. So then they put you in the box.
The Wanderers?
The Wanderer. All right. Stand by. But you go into the box. The first day, like, did you go into that box like, oh, this ain't shit. I'm going to do push-ups. I'm going to do handstand push-ups. How did you approach the box in the beginning?
No, I didn't do that at all. It was terrible.
It was.
Yeah. It was,
right from the gate.
Oh, yeah, it was terrible. Doing that,
Yeah.
going into that situation helped me navigate the SHU later. So when I finally got to the SHU, I had already been in, solitary situations for years. And so like during the hard wiring of my life and my brain and my development, I spent a lot of time in solitary. And so, like a lot of people, they go to the SHU there and they're well into their adulthood the first time they go to solitary. That's a big problem, but for me, I had already had coping strategies. Like
What is the coping strategy?
Well, first of all, I found out that they can't deny you religious material. And so as soon as I got there, I'd be like, you got to bring me a Bible. It's my constitutional right. And I don't know if you ever read the Bible, but that thing's like a horror movie.
Right.
From start to finish, like God sending bears out to eat like daycare. Like a bear ate a whole daycare, 42 children, for them like taunting some cat that was dressed all punk rock. He's walking down the street with like locusts and shit, necklaces, and the kids were like, ha ha. And then fucking God was like, oh yeah, and sent a bear out and ate them all.
Right.
That kind of shit.
Wait a second.
Yeah, not the best for your head.
Slow. No, I know. But he's saying this actually helped him survive the thing. Because it's like he's watching fucking slasher films in the Bible.
Yep.
So how did you come?
When the Levites, went around they marched around the city and they dropped the walls and they went in there and whacked everybody, and then, then God found out somebody had kept a cute one on the side.
You're Catholic, aren't you?
Well, actually, I did run. I ran with the Catholic Brothers, and in terms of like the church in there. I spent a lot of time with the Catholic Brothers.
But wait a second. So you went through all the stuff. So Old Testament, you're probably a huge fan.
Oh man, I love the Old Testament so much.
Right. And how about that Song of Solomon or whatever when he's talking about that chick? You ever read that when they're talking about the Solomon's girlfriend or whatever,
the baby,
with the tits and all that? No, not the splitting the baby.
Oh, yeah.
There's like a sex part in the Bible.
Sodom and Gomorrah?
Just the one?
No, it's a poem where he's talking about the woman's breast. My dad hit me to it. He's like, the best part of the Bible is when they're talking about this chick with her titties.
Right.
And
is it Psalms?
Yeah. It's like one of those. Do you still are like, so people come to you with Christian doctrine, or they tell you like what the Bible says, and you're like, no, motherfucker, I was in solitary. I'll tell you what the Bible said.
Oh no, they can sniff me out.
Yeah, they scared of you. Yeah.
They don't. No.
They don't even test. They don't even test.
It's like you, bro.
Yeah.
You just throw a couple nuggets and they're like, They gotta get confused and then walk away.
You know what? I'm thinking for you, brother, we should make a study Bible called Solitary Study Bible. The real good stories in the Bible, and have you point out all the horror stories and charge like $40. What do you think about that?
You mean like for like a little workshop?
An audio book.
Oh, an audio book,
man.
Oh, okay. Oh, like a punk rock reading of the Bible.
Exactly.
Like if Quentin Tarantino made a Torah.
Right. You come in and you go, listen, I know you want to hear about fucking, 2 fish being turned into 1,000 fish, and yeah, that's been played out. I want to talk about the bear that killed the kids. I want to talk about the bear that ate people. I want to talk about the Levites. I'm going to take you through the scariest, bloodiest, hardest parts of the Bible. And when you're done with this, you're going to fear God, my friend. You're going to fear God. What do you think about that?
That's a good idea. I mean, it's got some market appeal.
I think so.
Yeah.
So, all right. So one is you find a religious text that you can really sink your teeth in. What's another coping strategy for being in solitary?
Being noisy in terms of like my needs. So like if I need something, I don't take no for an answer. And which was fine until I got to big boy solitary, and they're like, oh, you can't be a pest. You got to be like, if I need a cookie, I didn't get a cookie.
Yeah.
I would make like, no, you're bringing my cookie or we're going to the dirt. Like it's going to be a whole day thing. So they just bring you a cookie after the first time because they're like, oh, we're not giving you a cookie, scumbag. And then, because you want a cookie because it's on the menu. Cookie's on the menu. I didn't get my cookie.
Right. Right. And they would rather not deal with a whole day fucking thing and just give you the cookie and be done with it.
Just give me the fucking cookie.
But when you went to Big Boy Solitaire, what was the experience where they told you, oh, yeah, that shit don't play here?
Well, that's the thing is like it's undignified.
What do you mean?
Like being like creating. First of all, like you're doing all that for a cookie. Come on, why don't you just
picture the respect?
Well, yeah. Why don't you like you're representing your presence is a representation of other people. And
yeah.
So making a big deal out of a cookie. Like there's people who have real problems. Like you didn't get a cookie, bro.
So this would be potentially other inmates or whatever that would explain to you like, hey, it's not like a guard came in with pepper spray and was like, all right, you want a cookie? How about this in your eye?
Yeah, no, they don't have to explain it. You just it's social learning. It's just ambient. Like you pick up on it right away. Like, oh, this is a different thing.
And what about? How many times were you in solitary confinement where you were just stuck with your own thoughts and freaking out or tripping out or whatever? How did you experience that?
Oh, that was pretty much all of it, except for like maybe a year and a half. So like I said, I started out as I was pretty stoked on life, even though, it wasn't ideal.
Right.
But then when I went to Paso Robles, they had this thing called the Intractable Ward Program, IWP. And so it was like, you're not allowed to, like we would sign, or like whisper through the crack in the wall and do that, communicate with our friends and neighbors and stuff. And like, so if they caught you doing that, communicating at all, that's not how it is in adult solitary. In kid solitary, you can't communicate at all. So if they catch you, they do, they put you on ice. So they come take your stuff. You're in there with nothing. And so it creates anxiety. And, the thing about the anxiety and the experience of solitary confinement is that it's not this big punch in the face. It's these little things every day, all the time. It's like, if I get caught, asking the guy for a cup of coffee, he might send it through the crack or something, then like my life is ruined for the next 16 hours, Mm-hmm. And you don't even, it's just all the time. It's all the time. It's all the time, day in, day out, day in. And then when I got out of prison, people were like, man, you're really well adjusted for somebody that was in prison for 17 years, not knowing my solitary confinement
part of it.
And so
wait, how do you relate their misunderstanding of you're well adjusted and them not understanding solitary confinement? How did you get from, because what you're describing to me sounds like a very constant anxiety that wears on you over a period of time. And then you come out and people are like, hey, you're well adjusted. And you're like, yeah, but you don't know the whole story. What's the missing element? How did you go from being angst-ridden or driven kind of whatever from anxiety to now I'm out and I'm going to comport myself? How did you deal with that piece?
You mean like now when I got out forever?
Well, when people say you're well adjusted, right?
Okay, yeah. So I agreed with them, right? It was years before I realized. So I got out in 2004. I was 31, and I didn't know. I had no idea what was going on with me emotionally and mentally and all that stuff. And then as I started living with people, because I haven't lived with people ever once in my whole life.
Right.
I was 31. It was the first time I ever like hung out with people who weren't like using drugs all the time, violence, all that stuff that, was in my family of origin, my neighborhood of origin. And so I get out and I'm like, I go to recovery, right? I'm now in recovery. I'm clean. Okay, cool. Start meeting people who are like, having different experiences than that.
Right.
Than that hood experience. And so I started thinking, oh, wow, they don't respond to stimuli the same way I do.
Give an example of the difference.
So just, I'll say something about, some kind of, I'll make a comment on an average, what other people consider a neutral, it's hard to come up with an example, but just little by little, just, oh, you mean people aren't like bent out of shape by that? Like they just go through that stressful situation. Any of one of life's little stressors that, could be a bill. Okay, so there you go.
Go ahead.
So when I got out, I was like, okay, I get a bill, and never had a bill before, never had an ID or none of that. Cooked a meal, did a load of laundry, none of that. And so, you get a bill, and it's like, oh, I got this bill. I don't have the money to pay it. Oh, well, I'm going to get a little fee, and like my life isn't going to, nothing bad is going to happen, Or like I went to school, like, oh, you got an assignment coming up, and oh, it's due on the 15th. Okay, cool. And I got to get a good grade so I can my life can keep proceeding the way it's supposed to. And then you don't get a good grade. You're surprised because you worked hard or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, that's not a big deal. Like this is a long-term thing, paying bills, getting grades. But for me, it wasn't like that. It was like, no, this is, it was striking like at the core of my survivability.
Life and death.
Yeah, it was
everything.
Life and death. Everything's life and death, where I'm like flooded with, like just coming here, just coming to Santa Monica, where I come like twice a year.
Yeah.
Was like, okay, Santa Monica. What's in Santa Monica? Oh, okay, there's some affluent looking Asians. Okay, that's cool. Oh, there's, I'm just trying to figure out where I'm at and like there's no such thing as neutral stimuli. That's the point. Like, and then if it's something that's threatening, then it's just all the way. You're just,
you know what? It's interesting what you're saying, because I think what I'm hearing you say is that the stakes for you, for what normal people would consider the normal ups and downs of life, but for you are experiencing them as life or death. High stakes. And like what you're also saying is like, yeah, I can't just go someplace. My mind doesn't operate yet where I go someplace and I'm not even thinking about who's there. Potential enemies, potential allies. What's the best place to park? Right? And so then you talk to other people who may not know your origin story, let's say. And they just see this, nice hair and your fucking collar, and they're like laughing with you like, ah, but they don't know that inside you're managing all of this like, man, they don't know how I think. I can say, yeah, sounds good, buddy, but I can't really tell them, because if I actually explain to them what's going on internally, they won't understand that.
They'll get scared.
Or they just won't understand it.
Or believe me.
Or believe. You know what? I go through that. Do you know that I go through that?
I know you do. I would imagine you do. Absolutely,
I really do.
Bro. No, I would imagine that you do, bro.
There's half the time
I know you.
I'm confused by situations, which it appears to me that other people have like a manual that they all like learn from.
Sure.
And I'm sitting there wondering which one of these motherfuckers is going to try to test me or insult me. And it half for me, now I never went to prison, but I grew up on a reservation and I had a difficult childhood in certain respects. But for like older adult males, I'm always on guard. Like, well, how's this guy gonna try to fucking push me around, right? Meanwhile,
You're on the defensive.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Do you have that still?
I do still have that, and I've had that, and that's part of having no control as a kid.
Yeah.
And maybe being bullied when I was little, and then like somewhere I take back the control or I gain it, and now I overcompensate in ways I don't even know.
Right.
And it comes out in like the defense. Everything's all cool, but should you halfway do something,
right,
I'm like all up on you. But otherwise, I'm nice, cool, nice, easy, get along. You know what I'm saying? Why am I so like, right? So, yeah, there is. It's a scratch away.
Yeah, I find that in my marriage sometimes. There's like a normal marriage.
You would say to me, Lucky, how do you feel like that, bro? You 6 foot 2, you feel emotionally
that's
cool
true.
with that too.
That's true.
But none of that. I don't see that. I don't see that, so I don't understand. Like I don't see what you're seeing.
You're like a dog that can't see the outside of how the dog looks. You're dealing just with what your internal experience is going on, and it's so natural. You don't even see yourself going into that mode.
Yeah, and not everybody is looking at me through the eyes that you're looking at me through.
Well, they should be. Well, they motherfucking should be.
Okay, well, anyways.
So Steve, okay, so that makes sense, right? It's like, okay, I've got to quote unquote adjust, but for you, it's got to be, part of it's got to be kind of like, I would think like, well, I'm going to fake it till I make it because half of it, you don't really experience the relief and all the stuff you're supposed to when you go through these things, but you've come to a place where you intellectually understand like, okay, that's an inappropriate response to this circumstance. So I know I'm supposed to say this, and I will say that even though internally I'm trying to manage the stress.
You know what? I got to agree with you on some things, and I feel like I want to say this. It's like I've said it before about prison and incarceration, and too on the topic of isolated. But I feel like I don't feel like I know that there's a certain amount of posturing that goes on the moment you enter that world, and that kind of posturing tension. When I did a prison term, was living like that. Like ever since the day, as soon as the cuffs went on, I'm posturing. And then I remember driving away from the prison, maybe 4 or 5 years later. And as I'm seeing the prison get further and further away from me, I can feel the tension start to like ease a little bit out of my neck. But for 4 years, I was in this constant state, whether it be a gunner or another dude or the politics of tripping over. And over time, that in itself had a tremendous effect on me that I didn't realize till way later on in life.
Right.
This institutionalizing talk, I was just like, man, I'm fine, bro. And, I think that in my late 40s and 50s, I started to like acknowledge and see some of the effects of my life kind of where I didn't still to this day. And bro, I did a fourth of the amount of time you did, a tenth of the amount of isolation time you did, but I don't know, man. Like, do you, now you sit on a different end of it. What? Yeah, man. Like sitting on the end of it and you being the guy that went through it. What is that like? Do all of a sudden all sorts of lights start going off as you starting to find out, and you're the actual hamster, if you will, that's picking up the book and reading your own fucking shit.
Yeah, regarding the posturing and the learning this new information about myself and about the world. Like I'm trained. I'm a community mental health social worker. I just graduated in August, and so
congratulations.
Thanks. Flunked out of that program. Got back in. I don't know how, but
that's right.
That's how it's really done. That's how it's really done.
You appreciate it more.
Right. That's how it's done. Dude, failure is a part of success.
Yeah.
Well, for me, what it was is, it was part of that, that new information about like how being kept in a box, kept in a cage as a human being, how that has affected my brain, and then knowing and seeing how it's affecting my daily living, and to the point where like I would go to my class at the end of I had a beef with one of my professors, and so It was a minor thing. It was over a grade. And by the 4th, 5th week, I would go to class and have my hand on the handle. I'm one class short of my master's degree, and I'm sweating and I can't open the door, and I'm emailing her. I can't make it to class today. Get on my bike, ride back down to the little student housing.
Damn.
And dropped out of school 2 units short of my master's degree, 10 years of school, ready to walk away from it all because I couldn't do confrontation, you know.
Right.
And so, you know, my training is in advocacy. So if somebody else had that problem, we would go through, like if we were working together as, you know, making some kind of therapeutic, you know, response to that situation, you know, we can go and like test it against other situations and kind of figure out cognitively and emotionally what are the precursors, what can you do to, you know, make it through this everyday life situation that people navigate all the time. They don't get along with their bosses. They don't get along with their teachers. And for me, it destroyed 10 years of hoping and planning and working, papers, hundreds of papers, you know, hundreds of books, 75 classes, you know, like I was ready to walk away from it all rather than confront this teacher who I saw at Whole Foods. She lives in Brooklyn, but she was flying in to do her lectures. And I saw her at Whole Foods in Berkeley. And she walked up and gave me a big hug and was like, just come to my office and we'll talk about it. I couldn't do it. The thought of doing that was just too terrible. You know, I couldn't.
What was the thing blocking you at that time? Like, I know you're saying confrontation, but what about the confrontation?
I think it was just about like figuring, there's this, people like to throw around fear of success, you know, for losers, right? So you got a fear of success. You know, I didn't realize that going to school all that time was going to contribute to any kind of positive outcome in my life until I got my first job interview a couple weeks ago. This is 10 years of school. I went and like I finally got a job interview and I was like, oh wow, this might lead to something. You know,
this might really turn into something.
Yeah, it might be. And then I blew the interview. Like, you know, they were like, hey, what do you know? I was like, can we negotiate the salary? It's pretty insulting. But not in those. I said it professionally. Like, the salary is exploitative, and I can't live with dignity on $52,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so. Plus I went to school for 10 years and you're offering me 20-something bucks an hour. That's also insulting.
Right.
And so.
Well, wait a second though. That doesn't sound like you blew the interview. It sounded like you explained to them what you need.
Yeah, well, exactly. I did explain to them what they need, but they don't want that.
Yeah, but that's
you blew it for them, not for you.
Right. That's not your problem.
Right.
Yeah, that's their problem.
Yeah. And I told them like I've never had a job where the employer wasn't pleased to have me and compensate me, you know, like, so I anticipate that you're going to give me money to keep me, you know, but also I'm not taking my work home. I told them that because that's also an expectation for social workers is that you take your work home, you do your notes at home.
Why don't they pay social workers what they're really worth and how much, if you were to engage a social worker and actually create an army of social workers to take care of society, save us all a lot of money in the long run, why aren't they compensating them?
I have this hypothesis, which is an idea you can test.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is that the more helpful you are in society, the less money you're going to get. And so, because they consider like the helper thing as part of the pay, right? Because you're doing rewarding work.
Right. You're absolutely right. So they're saying to themselves, the added value is that this is fulfilling for the individual. So we can pay them less. And for all the work that's not fulfilling to somebody, we have to pay them a lot more. Which is interesting because if you go in the inverse of your hypothesis, that means all these high-paid execs are doing unfulfilling work.
Well, like, you know, there's the sociopath as the executive.
100%.
And so nothing is fulfilling to sociopaths. So
there's not only that, but I mean,
you know,
a lot of these guys, it's kind of a known trope that in their secret or personal lives, they need to be humiliated and punished by dominatrixes. It's true. You laugh.
I know that, but fucking it's funny.
Yeah, the ones that know, the ones that have the access to that part of themselves.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that, and so they're just frustrated.
Right.
Wait, what? So what
That's dope, bro.
What do you mean?
I
Well,
love
explain that. Break that out. Because
I think that's a very good. I actually think there's a third part to that. I think there's either you're living it or either you know and you're hiding it, or you don't know and you're just frustrated and you don't know why you're frustrated. That'd be a fucked up place to be.
Oh, I guarantee
you don't know, but you're frustrated.
Most people don't know.
Most people don't know.
Yeah, because you're told like, oh, you get a partner, you have sex family style, you have a kid, you might watch 50 Shades of Grey or something and pick up a couple helpful hints, but it's
right.
You're not like there's no catharsis. You're
not like Paul Giamatti in Billions where you know exactly and you've got a code word and you got a friend, you got it all dialed in perfectly.
Right.
Now, just real briefly,
crazy,
yeah, that's great.
What do you think about that, Joy?
Yeah, go ahead, Joy. I did. I wanted to check in with your sister.
She thinks you're amazing, by the way. Like, she's all about it. Like, she was like, "Oh, I was like, okay."
Can you interpret what he just said, Joy?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So, sorry. Joy, what is first of all, how have you experienced your brother's journey?
That's a good question.
Oh, wow. It's hard to hear him say it, talk about it.
What makes it difficult?
Well, basically, my brother is I see him more like a child than a brother, my child, because my mom bounced on us when we were kids.
Oh, man, that's tough.
Yeah.
My mom bounced on me.
Yeah.
My mom bounced on me since I was about 2 years old, 1.5 to 2 years old. And no stepmom until I was 15, and that was a whole other fucked up train wreck. Go ahead.
But
so you kind of raised him.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. I remember him going back and forth to Eastlake, and my mom wouldn't go to court, so I would go to court, and I would see him when the cops would beat him. I would go to his court dates, and he would be all black and blue and
busted up.
I was lippy.
And
how did that make you feel as his sister?
Well, anytime anyone does anything to my family, I want to hurt them.
Right.
And I would, if I could.
Did you see the look in her eyes, Steven?
Yeah, I don't want to even look at her. Right,
I was like, whoa.
And
she's like,
I'm just going to stare at the ground here and act like I'm not here right now.
So how did you, and then when he went to Youth Authority, YA, all that stuff, did you go and visit him and stuff?
I did a few times. I went to see him in Escondido until he escaped from there.
How do you?
Yeah.
What was that? Did you was that midnight run or whatever that was? How did you get out of Escondido, bro?
Just walked away.
What did you do? You just put on a wig and a dress and just walk out the front door?
Yeah, no, just jumped the fence and ran down the road. And
how long did you get away
waited at the Greyhound station. I'm surprised they didn't check the Greyhound station. I was on the bus. How come they're not here? It's been 8 hours.
What did it feel? How good does it feel to be on a bus, escapee? How did that feel? Was that
Well, it didn't feel great until I got home. When I got home, I realized I couldn't go home.
Right.
I didn't have a follow up.
Right.
So I was just living with people, whoever would let me,
How long did this go on for?
Probably a few weeks until I got arrested again.
Wow, that's a good
man.
Okay.
Fugitive arts.
Another fugitive.
I know, I love it.
Second.
Just walked away. He said, I just hopped the fence and went away. Okay, so Big Sister Joy. So, all right. So, and then he escaped in Escondido. And what about in terms of him being in solitary confinement and SHU programs? Did you see any change in his behavior or at least in his persona to you?
Well, his stretches were really long.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. My brothers pretty much kept me protected of just how hard things were.
Is that hard for you to sort of endure the idea that your brother was keeping things to protect you, even though he was in a hard situation?
It's very painful. Just like I want to protect him of the things I went through when he was in there. because the trauma that I experienced or the trauma that he'd experienced, it's too difficult for either one of us to process.
Yeah, it's triggering to hear somebody you love talk about something that's really like, oh.
You know,
that you can't control or do anything about.
It's over.
Right.
Right.
Of course.
It's already happened.
Yep.
But every step of the way, like, we're there, like, for each other in every way we can. Like,
That's great.
Now, you know, we show up for each other on a daily basis, like for our families, you know.
Well, let me ask you this.
That's right.
From my perspective, like, I got a sister, Sandy Simmons. If you're listening to this, Sandy.
Hi, Sandy.
Sandy. She is my mom's daughter. And we've been not in contact for most of her life since my mom's funeral and then 14 years before that. So I don't really know her. She doesn't really know me. And when I first met up with her about 3 weeks ago, yeah, I'm like, the first thing I said to her is, am I supposed to hug you or what are we supposed to do? And I find myself wanting to be close, but also feeling like I need to protect myself a little bit and her, and I just don't know how to do the dance exactly. So for you guys, I would think you may have this thing where you're like, we're showing up for each other, but we're also still navigating the communication piece. And no, go ahead, tell me how you experience this.
Do we?
Well, yeah. So I just moved to LA a couple months ago. I was going to Berkeley and all that, and
Bruins.
And Bruins, yeah. They're kind of like a Bruin.
No, Berkeley Bears.
Bears, yeah.
Yeah, Bears, right.
And so it was like we talk on the phone every now and then, you know. But over the last year or two, like we really started investing a lot in our relationship, carving out time to talk on the phone. Sometimes lately we've been talking on the phone like 5, 6, 7 hours a week.
Really?
Yeah.
I get a smile when you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Is that for you, Sister Joy? Is that kind of like a dream come true a little bit? Like finally we're connecting?
There is many, decades that my brothers were gone. And both of them. And my other brother just moved to Nebraska. So it is, you know, and my brother's been up north ever since he got out. Well, he was living here when he first got out, and then he moved up north, and then he went back to prison, and then he wound up staying up there when he got out permanently, and then he went to school. So it is a dream come true that he's living down here now.
What about the loneliness that you've endured?
There was way too much crazy stuff going on in my life to really notice the loneliness. So I don't know. I'm used to being alone, so I don't feel lonely, if that makes sense.
Man, you sound like old Blue Eyes.
I don't really experience loneliness, so yeah.
Let me ask you something, just so that I'm clear. How many brothers are there?
Well, we used to have 3, but one of them passed away.
Okay.
The youngest one passed away to the disease of addiction.
Okay.
Man.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. So you have 2 younger brothers?
Now.
After that, now? And both along with your other brother, he too has been incarcerated in
No. That was a good one.
Okay. All right.
That was
got
the
it.
good
Got
one.
it. So
The good one, he never got in trouble. Yeah, he never went to jail.
okay, got it. Because when I hear you talking, I have an older sister. I had an older brother who was killed by police a long time ago, but I have an older sister, and I hear her talking sometimes, and she'll say some things that are maybe reminiscent in the sense that you got these older brothers, and it's like as you go through life and you think, oh, I got my older sister or your older brother, whatever, and you kind of go through life, and the first time you move or you need the TV put in, and you call your older brother, a boyfriend said something wrong, the older brother's there, or, you know what I'm saying? Like this older, and through my own selfish actions, through my own decisions, I robbed my sister of having her older brother through her life for a long time. Like, she was solo in it, But in reality, the brother that was, her little brother that looked out for her wasn't around, And I know that sometimes in my actions, I'm trying to pay that back to my sister, of the, I robbed my kids of a father. But, and I looked at that and it's like, yeah, I robbed my sister of a brother behind my... And I find that I have a strong desire to spend time and get to know her, or, get back that time. And so doing this as an adult sometimes is a trip. You're doing things as an adult that you didn't get to do you didn't get to have these experiences together growing up, but you're kind of like bridging it now as adults. Do you find that to be, kind of, yeah?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like just valuing family, like that's a learned behavior. Right. And so, it's like, oh, you make it to your 40s and then all of a sudden you don't need to rage on people, or you don't need to, there's things that start to like settle. There's a reason why like
Steve's looking at me because I still rage. I still rage on people.
Yeah, he might be 50 for him.
Well, you don't want to fight the rule and the count of exception, right?
Right.
So,
right. Oh, listen to this. It's obviously a scholar. He's well versed in the arguments.
I have an English degree from Berkeley.
So do I. So do I, my friend. I knew there was something good about you. I knew I liked you right from the gate. Absolutely. That's
why I brought it up.
You ever study with Colleen Lai? Does that ring a bell at all? Colleen Lai? Okay, that's all right. Just one teacher in a big institution. I get it.
How do we? I want to take this conversation. I want to take this conversation to the aspect of almost from his professional opinion as a doctor and the effects of.
It's a good question, which is from his standpoint and what he studied up to this point. Then the question would be from your expertise and what you know and experience, because what would you say would be the detrimental impacts or just the impacts of long-term solitary confinement on a human?
Yeah. So, I mean, like off the gate, right from the beginning, we are social creatures, right? And so, you might know, as an average person, you might know 100,000 words, but you only looked 8 of them up, but you just know all of this stuff, all of this, how cars work, all this stuff. Well, when you're in solitary confinement, you don't have any of that. You don't have any of that stimuli. You don't have any of that connection. You don't have any of that food. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's just the very beginning. Like whatever you went in with, that's what you're dealing with in terms of giving and receiving, energy and connection with other people. And so that's from the very beginning. And then what ends up happening is, it's very adversarial, right? The human condition is adversarial. And so
what do you mean by that?
Well, I'm talking to you, right? And so I'm looking at your face and I know you a little bit, let's say, and I go, okay, that look on your face, that means that you're pleased with the words I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so I want to keep that going because I appreciate you as a person and I want to be closer. So I'm going to keep doing the things that brings us closer together, and then assuming that there's no untreated mental health or no unresolved or you don't have insight into yourself. A lot of people don't have insight into their own motivations and stuff. But
totally.
Let's say I want to get closer to you, and so I'm going to do things socially to nurture our relationship.
Right.
But then one day I see you and you normally greet me very warmly, and then one day you don't, and then I'm going to have to interpret that is this long term, is it short term, is it personal, is it, what's going on with this? And so I might even just check in with you. Hey, I noticed that you're different. Oh yeah, I got a problem. Or no, fuck you, I heard what you did. Right. There's none of that going on. Right.
Right. There's no added information to at least analyze and interpret.
Right. And so if you got a little bit of trauma, if you go into prison, you probably got trauma. You probably seen some violence, probably done some violence, probably anticipated some violence. And then so you're already behind the 8 ball regarding like just living in a violent world. And then like here, okay, there's somebody on the tier, you know, it's I'm just going to have to assume that they have my best interest at heart. I can't read their body language. I can't check in with them. I can't figure out, you know, what's happening. And it's not a big deal. You just reason like, oh, that's Johnny Boy or whoever. Like, they're good. They're my people. Like, it's cool. But it's all the time. It's a little bit every day, all the time. That's the problem. Is like, it's not this big punch in the face. Like, you're not just like, oh, I'm solitary. Oh my God, I can't take it. Get me out of here.
Right.
It's like grinding away at your, you know, the way you connect with the world. You know, like there's a reason why people would get banished instead of executed. It was worse.
Right.
Executing is,
Right.
you know, it's just going to create political problems. But oh no, he's still living. He's just a non-person over in Florence now instead of, you know, in Salerno or whatever. And so
You're speaking of ancient Rome. That's interesting. That is interesting.
this is all hypothesis. I mean, this is just my experience plus a little bit of clinical training. You know what I'm saying?
Don't minimize.
Well, it's an idea you can test. So.
No, listen, the issue is that as he was talking, God, we know your situation, Steven. We know your situation, Big Lux. We kind of know your situation. But as you were talking about this, trying to read and taking what little bit of information you can get from somebody to try to understand what's internally, because that's one of the big problems. You're right. Adversarial, or one of the issues with being a human being is that you don't really know what's in someone else's mind. And part of the social game or relationship is trying to navigate that. And I think of Old Blue Eyes. And I think about, you know, Old Blue Eyes and I have had some late night heart-to-hearts. You know, hand-holding, talking intimately amongst ourselves.
A little incense and a back rub.
Oh, yeah. 2 concrete slabs right next to each other. And Old Blue Eyes is constantly reading the room. Constantly reading the room.
People, vibes, movement.
All
body.
the time. And he thinks, or at least in the past, let's say, he's operated that everyone else must also be reading what's going on with him. Except he doesn't understand that to a certain extent, he is like opaque mask. You can't understand what's necessarily going on with him. And his communication style is such that he's putting out what he thinks is information, and he certainly internally is like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Old Blood. You can tell me.
Yeah, you go right ahead.
Go ahead. And there's times where he'll be like, I don't understand what's wrong with Chumahan or whoever's in my... Like, who the fuck doesn't know what's going on with me? Should be obvious from the situation. Right? Have you ever felt that, Old Blue Eyes?
I don't know what you're talking about, dude.
I knew he was going to say that.
Yeah. So I... you're going to end the show now? When we got on you.
Yeah.
When we got on you, it's the end of the show.
Time is up, dude. It's been an hour.
And
What do you want me to say?
Steven, with your expertise, when a guy distracts and he turns down the show, how do you interpret that? And it's a hypothesis. We'll test it later.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You know, where there's smoke, there's fire.
All right.
That was another great answer.
I love that. What's going on with you in the future? What are your plans? What do you got going on?
Well, I'm looking for work. I'm trying to find work that's not exploitative.
Yeah.
Right? Because I can't really provide good social work and help people live a full, dignified life if I'm
living out of your car,
denying myself, you know.
Right.
So, but I'm gonna find a really cherry spot where I'm gonna get like great support, supervision, and 2 years from now, I'm gonna get my license to practice social work because it's the LCSW that comes after the MSW, and then I can do whatever I can do whatever I want.
Listen, let me tell you something. The law offices of Ovando Bone would be happy to write your recommendation and or help you meet whoever you need to meet. Back you up 100%.
Also, as well, my mother has an MSW and some other stuff and worked in social work in LA for a long time and can't anymore because of she had a liver transplant. But I totally be down to get your information and put you guys in touch. I'm sure she could help you out.
That's really awesome.
Nice.
Schwartz,
Yeah.
Joy,
Awesome.
your brother seemed to indicate that there was something starstruck when you come to the show. Can you please explain what was going on there?
Yeah. Do you
And
listen to
tell
the
us.
show?
Do you
know
listen to
about
the
us?
show?
Oh
Do
my
you want to go
gosh.
on a date with Big Lugs? What's the story?
Jesus Christ.
Dude,
You
She's
guys-
single and she cooks like the wind.
Oh, yeah. Look at Joy. She just punched her
Yeah.
brother. Joy, do you listen to this show?
You guys are my rock stars. This is like meeting Rolling Stone right now.
Oh.
Yeah. I sent my son your, because my son's native, my firstborn.
Oh, I love that. What kind?
He's
What tribe?
He's a mutt. So his dad is like a couple of different natives.
Okay.
Yeah. So I send him your inspirational things every morning that
Do
you
you
do.
really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And-
Look at him, man. He's red like a
he's
fucking tomato right now. Look
Well,
at this
he
guy.
needs it. He's my
Cherry
oldest is
tomato.
out there. He's
Oh,
still out
okay.
there.
All right.
Well, we pray for him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Many blessings, positive energy, joy. It was a joy to have you here on this
Thank
show.
you.
Yeah, you brought joy in.
Anybody
Yeah,
gives you a
absolutely.
problem, let us know. We'll fucking smack them in the face.
Yeah, you don't have to let your brother know. We'll
Yeah,
take
let
care
your
of it.
brother go in peace now.
Yeah.
He's a man of scholar. He's a
Yes,
scholar
yes,
and a
yes.
gentleman. Let us roughnecks take care of things.
Can I give a shout out to my son for letting me wear his Cortez?
Yeah.
Present.
What's his name?
His name's Shane. He goes to Chatsworth Charter, and I'm
Oh, wow.
wearing his
Oh,
Yeah.
Shane. Big
Shane.
shout out to Shane.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I love it.
You got anything, Schwartz?
Yeah, just City of Santa Monica, family, mother, wife, most importantly. And
Why is that funny, old blue eyes?
Well,
Why do you laugh?
Family, mother, wife.
yeah, hey, man. Yeah, I got
Shout
to make
out-
sure to cover all
Did you
bases,
tell your
but,
mom you're going to tell everybody out there in the world that she had a liver transplant? Did you sign HIPAA forms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually have power of attorney, so
Do
I
you?
can talk about it, yeah.
All right. Very good. Very good. Okay.
Yeah, anyways. That's it.
John.
Oh, great. Okay. Sean at movementum.media for all of your audio needs.
All right. And Ovanda Bone LLP. I've already said it. You've already read it. Hooking up with anybody who needs help. What's your son's name, Joy?
John.
Big shout out to John from another Indian brother. That's all I got, Big Steve. What do you got?
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for Steven and Joy coming
Yeah,
down
that
today. Great
was
to hear
awesome.
from you, Steven. We'd love to have you back on, man. Maybe
Anytime.
dive a little deeper into that. And any way we can help, we support you.
Okay, thanks.
All right?
Yeah.
A shout out to the Soul Assassins Camp, Cookies, Vibes, Supermax Hardware, www.supermaxhardware.com. Check us out. Listen to the Hard Luck Show on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And another shout out to Pico Youth and Family Center. And a shout out to Enzo's Pizzeria, one of our proud sponsors. Lenny and PR.
And PR. And also, Pulpo Beard Oils.
Pulpo Beard Oil. Thank
Yeah.
you, Calco.
Calco Marsola.
Yes.
Get a beard that just looks like the mane of a black stallion.
And like he said, adios, amigos.
Right in my mouth.
I had pumpkin flavored Oreos.
I'm going to kill you.
Here comes October.
Hello, this is Discover, and we take customer service very seriously. We know that if you have a question or concern about your credit card, that's a serious matter, and you need to talk to a real person about it. So we offer around-the-clock access to seriously talented representatives in the USA. Again, it's a serious endeavor. The only funny thing about it is Bob. If you call us and Bob answers, you're in for a treat. Get 100% US-based customer service and talk to a real person day or night. Discover. Exceptionally common sense.
Unjunk your sleep at Mattress Firm's Cyber Week sale and wake up a better you. Shop in-store or online and save up to $500 when you get a king bed for the price of a queen or a queen for a twin. Plus, get a free adjustable base with qualifying Sealy purchase up to a $499 value. Or save up to $500 on Tempur-Pedic, the most highly recommended bed in America. And you can shop with confidence thanks to our low price guarantee. Unjunk your sleep, only at Mattress Firm. Offer valid with qualifying purchase. Restrictions apply. See details at mattressfirm.com.